All right, everyone else. This is a 40-minute yoga practice. I'm going to be teaching this session tonight until I figured I'd start recording my weekly classes and then just post them up here on YouTube for anyone who wants to come and revisit them, or anybody who doesn't have an opportunity to come to my class. You can join in here, just participate and enjoy. We're mostly going to be looking at the connection between the hips and the rib cage. And we're going to do that by some pelvis mobilization, some shoulder joint mobilization, but also breath work. So you won't need anything for this. You'll just need the floor. You can probably do this on bed if you really wanted to, though. Might not be as useful, but give it a try. Just find a comfortable seat. You can be crisscross legs. You can be kneeling. If either of those are very uncomfortable for you, you can sit up on some blocks, some books, a little stool. You can even do it in a chair. And so just find a nice, comfortable position that you can settle into and sink into. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, giving yourself a couple minutes just to settle in. So if you need to pause the thing, go for it. And when you're ready, just go ahead and take a deep breath into the nose. And exhale with a big... One more time, taking a deep breath into the nose. Exhale with a big sigh. Just let the breath return to neutral. Noticing how you are breathing. Now, the mind may want to wander and stray. That is perfectly natural. In fact, I guarantee you your mind is going to wander. So this whole practice of yoga is about recalling the mind, about bringing the mind back to this moment. So as you notice yourself thinking, can you just say, oh, there I go, I'm thinking. And let yourself tune into what you are feeling in this moment. And just feeling into the sensation of the breath. And if you'd like, you can become aware of the sensations in your heart center. And see if there's an intention here, a longing of sorts. Maybe some kind of affirmation. That intention can be for anything. It can be to ground. It can be for health. It can just be to hang out and have a good time. Whatever you want it to be. But no matter what that intention is, can you repeat it silently to yourself 3 times? And just notice the feeling of that intention, of that affirmation. And we'll begin today's session with 3-part breathing. And so 3-part breathing is just breathing into the 3 different chambers of the torso. So we're just going to take a deep breath in, filling into the belly. And then exhale from the belly. We're just going to play with that first chamber for now. So just taking a deep breath into the belly, feeling the belly expand as you breathe in. And then exhale from the belly. We help the belly to expand because that helps the diaphragm to release. So just taking another breath into the belly. And then exhale from the belly. There's 2 more times of that, breathing into the belly. And exhale from the belly. And then let the breath return to neutral. Notice how that was for you. I'll be posting a video later on about 3-part breathing where we go into a more detailed explanation of how to do it. So if you're struggling with it, wait for that video to come out. And if you're struggling with it, just let yourself breathe naturally throughout the rest of the practice. Don't stress yourself out. Right? We don't want it to be just another thing that we add to the list. So if you're like, I can't feel myself breathing on my belly, let go, right? Just breathe normally, breathe naturally. And so this next part, we're going to let the breath kind of spill over from the belly into the base of the rib cage. Sometimes it's useful to have the hands on the bottom of the rib cage. So if you want to do that, you are welcome to. But exhale everything out. Then as you like, breathing into the belly. And then let that fill over into the ribs. And then exhale from the ribs and the belly. Breathing into the belly. And the ribs. Exhale from the ribs and the belly. One more time together, breathing into the belly. And the ribs. Exhale from the ribs and the belly. And continuing on your own, playing with these two different chambers of breath. Just noticing how it feels. If you can, breathing exclusively in and out of the nose, but no worries if you can't. Springtime, sometimes we get clogged up. And then let yourself return to a neutral breath. Just noticing how you feel. Don't forget that the breath is omnidirectional. As you breathe in, you can feel it on the back line of the body as well. So as we invite this third chamber in the top of the chest, top of the shoulders, see if you can feel the back line of the body as you breathe in. So exhale everything out. Then as you like, taking a deep breath into the belly. And then the ribs. And the chest. And then exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. Breathing into the belly, the ribs, and the chest. And then exhale from the chest, ribs, and belly. One more time together, breathing into the belly, ribs, and chest. And then exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. And continuing on your own for a few breaths. And again, no worries if you just need to breathe deeply without focusing on these three different chambers. Always giving yourself permission to take care of what you need to do in this moment to help to promote a sense of stability and ease in your mind and senses. And when all of this feels complete, let yourself return to a neutral breath. Just noticing how you feel. Noticing any differences. We're going to be using that breath as we continue on throughout the practice. So that I invite you to take a 3-part breath. That's what we're referring to. Again, if it's something that eludes you at the present moment in time, absolutely no worries. Just breathe deeply. Maybe take that long sighing exhale. We'll start, or rather continue, on our backs. Feet connected to the floor, knees pointed up towards the ceiling. Just let the body rest and settle in here. We're going to start with some pelvic mobilization. And so we're just going to be tucking the pelvis and then pushing the pelvis away. Keep the pelvis connected to the floor. I'm going to lift it off just for a second so you can see this a little bit easier. When we say tuck the pelvis, it's as if the tailbone is scooping upwards towards the ceiling. And then when we say push the pelvis into the floor, we're not just pushing down, we're just untucking the pelvis, as if we're trying to get the tailbone to touch the spine. Right? And so again, keep your pelvis on the floor. Mine is on the up, so I can show you a little bit better. It's a difficult motion to see. So I'm going to settle back down here. And then just feel yourself kind of rocking back and forth here. Let that pelvis just tuck and release. Nothing wild here. Nothing elaborate. Sometimes these elaborate positions can be too much. And they're too much of a stimulus on our systems. We do too much in our day-to-day anyway. We don't want to make a practice that's supposed to be cultivating stability and ease, something that is also dysregulating us. My adrenaline junkie friends tend to really enjoy those more movement-based exercises, and that's lovely until burnout starts to set in, until anxiety begins to rise, depression kind of sets in because you're not getting an appropriate amount of rest. And so tuning into simplicity is often the antidote to many of the complications of our lives. So just letting that pelvis tuck and release. Just going back and forth here. There's a couple of different variations of this that we can go over, but for today, we're just letting ourselves move. If there's any pain associated with it, though, move in a smaller range of motion. How big a range of motion can you make without straining, without stressing? And also, if this is a new movement for you, the inclination may be, let me push, let me grip, let me really move. Let go of all that. That's not essential here. The easier and the softer that we move, the more likely we are to tune into the muscles that actually need to be moving that help this movement to happen. So just letting yourself rock back and forth from the pelvis and let it be easy. Feeling that pelvis move around the leg bones. When all of that feels complete, just let yourself rest here. And give yourself a moment to try that 3-part breath. Just taking a breath in, filling up the belly, the ribs, and the chest. And then exhaling from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. Una más, por favor. Taking a deep breath into the belly, the ribs, and the chest. Exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. And let the breath return to neutral. And if you were sitting up whenever you tried that 3-part breath with me earlier, notice how you feel. Is there any difference in doing it on the floor? Next movement here, we're going to come into some bridges. So that bridge is really kind of targeting this connection point that we're talking about today. We're talking about this connection between the rib cage and the pelvis. When we help to mobilize the body in a way that's useful and efficient, we find that we use less energy to move, which frees up more energy to do the things that we want to be doing because we're not pushing ourselves into ranges of motion that cause pain. And so what we're going to do here is I like to use my thumbs and my middle fingers. I put my thumbs on the base of the rib cage and my middle fingers on the top of the pelvis. Right? You'll find those 2 pelvic bones. And we're just going to keep that connection taut. We're not squeezing the abdomen though. Right? Sometimes people like to squeeze and grip and hold tension. That's not what we're doing. We're finding ease and stability through all of this. So when I say we're keeping it taut, we're just not going to let it move. And so as you like, just pushing through the feet, the glutes will engage as the pelvis lifts up off the floor. And it's as if you're just drawing a straight line from the shoulders to the pelvis. And you don't want any breaking in this line, in this chain. And sometimes what happens is that people are like, look, I'm doing it. But then they get down to the floor and they feel their pelvis untuck. They feel their pelvis move when they completely relax on the floor, which means that going up, your pelvis has shifted. We don't want that right now. It's not that it's a bad thing, just for right now, we're not looking for that motion. We're just trying to feel into this connection between pelvis and shoulder. So as you notice yourself untucking, whenever you come back down, can you try to catch yourself in the tuck as you lift up? And so maybe making that range of motion smaller as you lift and lower, right? Even if you barely come off the floor. Another thing to look out for, sometimes people, they will kind of tuck, scoop the pelvis, and then lift off. Let go of that. Again, it's not wrong. That's a different movement, which can be very useful. But for right now, can you just let yourself lift off the ground, retraining these muscles? So just a nice, simple, clean lift off. Nothing terribly complex. Although sometimes it can seem that way. It's often frustrating moving in smaller ranges of motion because we have to have a subtle conversation with ourselves. And I've noticed that people who tend to make their lives busy tend to struggle with things that help them to slow down because that busyness keeps them from addressing what's actually going on. Which sometimes is useful, but we can't live that way forever. So when all of this feels complete to you, when you feel sated by this movement, let your pelvis return to the floor, inviting a deep breath into the nose. Exhale with a big sigh. And let yourself tap into that three-part breathing. Breathing into the belly, the ribs, and the chest. And then exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. One more time, breathing into the belly, the ribs, and the chest. And then exhaling from the chest, the ribs, and belly. Breathing in and out, just let the breath be natural and neutral. Noticing how you feel. We'll play with the arms a little bit next, right? In the relationship between the pelvis and the rib cage, the shoulder girdle is basically the hips of the rib cage. So we're just going to play with the arms a little bit. So let the arms drop down by your side. Just lift the arms up towards the ceiling, moving in the direction over the head, and then let them wave back down. You might feel a little bit of movement in the shoulder blades. Quite all right. We do want to watch out for any movement or lifting in the rib cage. And so sometimes as the arms raise up, the rib cage tries to help the movement in the arms by lifting. Right, so the rib cage will push up. I'm exaggerating here. It's probably not going to be that big on any of y'all, but sometimes it is. So just letting yourself notice, is the rib cage flaring as the arms move up? And as soon as you notice that flare, let the arms drop back down. Right, as soon as you notice the ribs flaring, just let the arms move back down towards the floor. Again, you want to honor where the body's at. It's like getting an Uber, right? You can't go to where you want to go if Uber doesn't know where you are. What if they'll pay me to plug Uber? Like, hey, I advertise you. And so that is not an endorsement of Uber, by the way. And so just letting the arms move up and down. And again here, you might not notice a lot, you might not feel a lot. And sometimes that's exactly what we need. We don't know that we need it though. Right? Some people just really want to feel intensely into all kinds of sensations, but really what can often be most useful is giving yourselves permission to process, to experience. When all of this feels complete, and when you feel like you are sufficiently moved out of the arms, just let the arms fall down to the floor, taking a deep breath into the belly, the ribs, and chest. And then exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. And breathing into the belly, ribs, and chest. And then exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. Just let the breath return to neutral. And we're going to roll over. Roll over onto our hands and our knees. So very slowly. If you enjoyed laying down on the floor, though, continue to stay there. You have no obligation to continue on. But if you'd like to, just roll it over very slowly. Roll over to one side, maybe be there for a whole breath, just because sometimes it's nice to do that. And then pushing yourself up into a tabletop position. And so in tabletop, we're going to review some of the things that we just did. First, we're going to start with some of that pelvic mobilization. But before we do that, just notice what it's like to have a three-part breath here. Taking a breath in, filling up the belly, the ribs, and chest. And then exhaling from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. One more time, breathing into the belly, ribs, and chest. And then exhale from the chest, ribs, and belly. If you are not used to being on your hands and knees in this position, take care of your wrists. Sometimes adding a little bit of padding underneath the palm of the hands can be useful. Make sure that the root of the palm is what's pressing into the ground and you're not gripping too much through the fingers. Hand grip can be useful at times, especially if we're doing hand balances and things like that. But for the most part, we just want to make sure that we're rooting through this part of the hand. Think of the hand being like the foot, right? You don't want to be walking around on your claws the whole time, right? On your toes, right? You want the base of the foot to be connected to the floor, and you want the palm to have a little bit of an arc in it, just like a foot. So finding that comfortable position for you. We're just going to start by moving the pelvis, by shaking the joints. Same movement that we did before, though. We're lifting the tailbone, trying to touch the spine with the tailbone, and then tucking the tailbone, trying to get it to extend towards the floor. We're not doing anything with the shoulders yet. Just lifting and lowering the tailbone. Just notice how this feels here. You might notice that you have more of a range of motion here, but if there is any pain, stop. Move in a smaller range of motion. Sometimes that can be very frustrating, but it's very soothing for low back pain to move in a range where there is no pain. If there is no range where there is no pain, then this is not for you today. It doesn't mean it won't ever be. It just means that today you might need a little more work on another area, which is okay. And so just let yourself feel the pelvis lifting and lowering. And again, just moving in a way that helps to promote a sense of stability in the mind and the senses. And when that feels complete, this kind of lifting and lowering the pelvis, let yourself rest. Inviting a deep breath into the belly, the ribs, and the chest. And then exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. One more time, breathing into the belly, ribs, and chest. And then exhaling from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. We're going to play with the arms a little bit now. We can't quite, we could bring the arms overhead, but that would be weird, trying to just support ourselves on our knees. And so what we're going to do instead here is we're just going to push the arms against the floor, spreading the shoulder blades apart from each other, and then squeeze the shoulder blades towards each other, working on this protraction and retraction. If there's a lot of shoulder pain or shoulder tension, this is often what I work with. There's a woman with a hunchback who I worked with for 2 weeks. We just had 2 sessions together. This was all that we worked on. All of her pain went away. We did this kind of movement in a variety of positions. So we did it in this position here. We did it against a wall. We did it at side lying. And so that was a revelatory experience. Simplicity can often be a gateway forward, even when people have told us that movement is no longer possible in those areas. The doctor told her that her shoulder was permanently frozen. It wasn't. Just needed some help. Just needed some guidance. And so if you're struggling with this movement, if you notice yourself arcing through the spine a lot, slow it down. It doesn't have to be a very big movement. In fact, if you kind of really focus on it, you can just feel into little teeny tiny movements, which can sometimes be a little more useful than trying to push in that full range of motion. If the palms start to hurt, feel free to kind of take a break. Let yourself rest as you need to. Especially if you've got some connective joint disorders, if you have arthritis, definitely take care of yourself. Right? You don't have to listen to the hippie doing this weird shoulder thing. Always follow your intuition and your instincts. And when all of that feels complete, let yourself rest, taking a deep breath into the belly, the ribs, and the chest. And then exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. If you like, separate the knees wide, bring the feet together, and send the hips back into child's pose. So you kind of create a cradle for the torso, Walk the arms forward. Let the top crown of the head or forehead rest on the floor. Just taking a deep breath into the belly, the ribs, and the chest. And then exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. One more time, breathing into the belly, the ribs, and chest. And then exhaling from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. If you're loving this position and you want to stay here forever, do it. Join along whenever you're ready. But for those of you that are ready to continue on, please return to that tabletop position. We're just going to finish things off with some cat cows. And so we're going to channel our inner Halloween cat and then our farm cow. We don't really have festive cows here, so we just have Halloween cats. So you're just giving yourself a little wiggle, shake everything out. And as you like, we're going to start just by tucking the tailbone and then pushing those shoulder blades away from each other. So two of those exact motions that we've been working on. What? Who would have thought? And as you do that, the back is going to arch. And this is our cat position. You can bring the chin down to your chest. And then as you like, going the opposite way, lifting the pelvis up towards the floor, squeezing your shoulder blades together as the chest presses forward and the gaze looks up. And then exhale, arcing into that cat position. Inhale, lifting up into the cow position. Exhale. Inhale. And then exhale. And inhale. Just continuing this for a couple of minutes. Well, maybe not minutes, just rotations. As many as you like to do. Feel free to stop whenever it feels complete to you. You might not feel complete. Just let yourself rest. Taking a deep breath into the belly, the ribs, and chest. And then exhale from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. And as you like, just returning to a comfortable seat. If you would like to take a Shavasana, please feel free to. Pause the video and rejoin whenever you're ready. Just let yourself lay down for Shavasana, close the eyes, let yourself breathe, let yourself rest and integrate. For those of you that would like to end with a little bit of a meditation, we're going to come into Bahu Mudra, which is a useful grounding hand gesture. And so we're going to bring the thumb, the pinky, and the ring fingers to touch, so that way the middle finger and the pointer finger stick out. So the peace fingers are popping out. You're going to take those peace fingers, plug them into the floor, so that you form a triangle between the two hands and the crown of the head. And as you like, just take a deep breath into the belly, the ribs, and the chest. And then exhaling from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. And breathing into the belly, the ribs, and the chest. And then exhaling from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. Again, breathing into the belly, ribs, and chest. Exhale from the chest, ribs, and belly. Maybe continuing that 3-part breathing on your own for a few breaths. Just stay here for as long as you like. Once everything is complete, again, feel free to pause this and take more time here. But when all of it feels complete, just let the hands move to heart center. Just take a moment to sit in whatever feeling you have at this moment in time. And then if you like, repeat after me. Peace in my body. Peace in my mind. Peace in my soul. Peace all around me. May all beings know peace. So thank you so much for joining along. It has been an honor and a privilege to be here with you all. I look forward to the next time I film another video and then pop it out on the interwebs. Take care.